Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are logging into a world that I think a lot of us are fascinated by from the outside. Maybe we play the games, maybe we watch the streamers, but I don't think we fully grasp the nitty-gritty, sweaty, panic-inducing reality of it. We are talking of the indie video game industry.
It is a fascinating setting. You know, on the surface, we think of video games as just code and graphics, pixels and polygons.
Right, entertainment.
It's entertainment, but when you peel back that layer, especially in the indie scene, it is this absolute pressure cooker. It's not just, let's make something fun. It's rivalry. It's financial precarity, and it's this intense, almost desperate need to create something meaningful before the bank account hits zero.
You're right, because unlike the big AAA studios with infinite budgets, these indie teams are basically running on caffeine and hope.
Pretty much.
One bad launch and the studio closes, people lose their mortgages. It's real.
Exactly. It's high stakes. And today's deep dive is a perfect example of that pressure cooker in action. We are decoding Toucan Play by Ali Hazelwood. Now, if you know Hazelwood, you know she's usually the queen of STEM romances, lab coats, academia, PhDs, falling in love over microscopes.
Which is its own kind of high-stress environment, sure.
It is, but here she is trading the lab coats for coding, game engines, glitches, and
a snowy retreat.
A snowy retreat that forces two absolute enemies to debug their relationship. It's a shift in setting, but the intensity remains the same.
I love that shift. And honestly, the rivals to lovers trope feels so right at home in the tech world. I mean, it's competitive by nature.
Totally.
So let's set the stage. We have two studios, Flybudder and Nephilim, and they are forced to collaborate. Who are the players here?
So, in the red corner, representing the narrative soul of gaming, we have Viola Bowen. She is a lead designer at Flybudder Studios. And when I say narrative soul, I mean she lives for the story. She is passionate about RPGs, role-playing games.
Can we pause just for a second for anyone who doesn't game? When we say RPG, we're talking about games where the story, the dialogue choices, and the character development are the main point, right?
What's it? Yeah.
Like you're playing a role.
Precisely. Think Baldur's Gate or The Witcher. It's about immersion in a world.
Yeah.
And Viola is deeply, deeply emotionally invested in this. She's the kind of person who cried when she read the books the game they're working on is based on. But, and this is key, she is riddled with anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
She worries about her career stability constantly. She feels fragile, like she's one bad project away from disaster.
Which makes sense given the industry volatility we just mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the red corner. Who is in the blue corner?
In the blue corner, we have Jesse Andrews. He is the lead designer at Nephilim Studios. Now, Nephilim is known for high-octane action and combat games. Think Zephyr's Blade, fast reflexes, hitboxes, combat mechanics.
So if Viola's the poet, Jesse is the gladiator.
That is a perfect analogy. And to Viola, Jesse is the enemy. He's tall, dark, handsome, and perceived by her as incredibly cold, arrogant, and dismissive.
The classic Ice King to her anxious sunshine.
Exactly, and the conflict kicking this whole thing off is massive. A major publisher, Starplay, basically says, hey, we want to make Limerence 3. Now, Limerence is this beloved book franchise that Viola adores. It's her Harry Potter, her Lord of the Rings, it's her Holy Grail, it's everything to her. But Starplay looks at the market and says, Flybudder, you're good at story. Nephilim, you're good at combat. We aren't trusting either of you to do this alone. We want you to work together.
Which sounds logical on paper, right? Combine the strengths. It's like a Reese's peanut butter cup of game design. But in reality?
In reality, it is a logistical nightmare. These two studios hate each other. There's so much bad blood everywhere. And to prove they can actually function as a unit, Starplay forces them into that classic corporate torture device.
Oh, no.
The mandatory team-building retreat.
Ugh, God. The Forced Fun Initiative at a ski lodge in the snow just before Christmas. It is the perfect recipe for disaster or romance, depending on how you look at it.
Usually both. Always both.
So our mission today is to unpack this glitch in human communication. We're going to look at how a 6-year professional feud might actually just be a massive error in code, and how being snowbound forces Viola and Jesse to finally patch their relationship.
Let's get into the source code of this feud. Part 1 is what I call the glitch in the system. We really need to understand why these two studios hate each other so much. It's not just we are competitors, it's visceral.
Oh, it's petty. The source material describes the relationship between Flybutter and Nephilim as, quote, an interaction graph worthy of a Dostoevsky novel.
Which is just a great line.
It implies layers of misery and complexity.
And it is. It's incredibly petty and deeply personal. You have Nephilim's CEO, Otto, publicly calling a programmer a nincompoop in front of thousands of people.
Nincompoop. Who even uses that word anymore?
Yeah.
That feels like a specific choice to be insulting in a condescending way.
It's so dismissive. And then you have actual physical fights breaking out at conventions. It's like rival football firms, but for coding.
We have to talk about the chaos that is Mike and Otto. Mike is the CEO of Flybutter. Otto is the CEO of Nephilim. And apparently, they have been having a decade-long, on-again, off-again secret relationship that literally everyone knows about.
It sets the tone for the whole environment. It's incestuous in a professional sense. I mean, the book makes it clear everyone has dated everyone, everyone has fought everyone. The boundaries are just, they're non-existent.
It sounds exhausting. Imagine trying to get work done when your boss is screaming at the other CEO, who he also slept with last night.
It creates a culture of drama. But for Viola, the animosity toward Jesse is very, very specific. It's not just, I hate your company. She calls him a poisonous mushroom.
A poisonous mushroom. That is evocative. It implies he looks good, maybe colorful or intriguing, but if you get close, he'll kill you.
That's a great breakdown of the metaphor. Now, we have to address something important here. Viola is what we would call an unreliable narrator.
Hold on. Let's unpack that term for a second. Usually, unreliable narrator means someone is lying to the audience, or they're crazy. But here, it's more subtle. You're
Right. She's not lying, not at all. She is reporting her reality as she perceives it. But her perception is colored by anxiety, insecurity, and, past trauma. She is convinced, 100% convinced, that Jesse hates her guts. And she traces it back to two specific incidents.
Okay, let's look at the evidence. Exhibit A, the interview. This was 6 years ago.
Viola was fresh out of college. Imagine that vulnerability. You're young, you want to break into this industry, you're nervous. She's interviewing for a job, and the boss, not Jesse, but the guy running the interview, was a sexist nightmare.
Ugh, the worst kind of gatekeeping.
He was making jokes about her portfolio being too girly, dismissing her RPG background, just really undermining her. And Viola, to her credit, didn't just take it. She stormed out.
Good for her. Seriously, that takes guts when you need a job.
Absolutely. And Jesse, who was working there at the time but wasn't the boss, followed her out. Now here's Viola's memory of the event. She remembers him apologizing on behalf of men everywhere, which is nice. And then she remembers venting to him for 20 minutes. Just ranting.
A total trauma dump.
Exactly. About how awful the industry is, how hard it is to be a woman in games, all of it. And she believes that since that moment, he has deliberately ignored her. She thinks, I annoyed him, I was unprofessional, I yelled at him, he thinks I'm a loose cannon.
She thinks she blew her first impression by being too emotional or too angry.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the foundation. Then we have Exhibit B, the reinforcement incident, the infamous mistletoe incident from a year ago.
This is the wound that hasn't healed. They were at a mutual cousin's engagement party because, of course, in this incestuous industry world, they share a cousin or a friend's circle.
Of course they do.
They get caught under the mistletoe.
The classic trap. Everyone is watching. The pressure is on.
And Viola, trying to be a good sport, thinks, okay, we'll do a polite cheek kiss. Let's just get through the social ritual. But Jesse looks at her, and Viola perceives his expression as pure disgust. And he says, quote, I don't think so.
Ouch. That is rough. I don't think so. It's a rejection in front of a crowd. It's brutal.
It's humiliating. And then, to add salt to the wound, she overhears him later telling her cousin, I don't want anything to do with her.
See, if I'm Viola, I'm agreeing with her assessment. That sounds like hate.
Hmm.
I don't want anything to do with her. That's not ambiguous. You hear that? You're not looking for nuance.
It feels completely unambiguous. If you hear that, you don't think, oh, maybe he's shy. You think, this man despises me. It solidifies him as the villain in her story.
But here is where it gets really interesting, and where the glitch in her programming starts to show. Despite all this, despite the perceived hate, despite the cold shoulder, Viola admits she has a massive crush on him.
A nanoscopic crush, she calls it. Which, in the language of someone in denial, obviously means it's huge, it's astronomical.
She's having sex dreams about the guy. She admits it. She's dreaming about him while dating other people. It's this classic cognitive dissonance. She thinks he hates her, but she's physically and emotionally drawn to him.
She views him as the grumpy to her sunshine. It's a trope she understands from books, but she can't reconcile the attraction with the hostility she thinks exists. She thinks she's broken for wanting a guy who treats her like dirt.
Which is a very relatable feeling, honestly. Why do I like the mean guy? But the question is he mean? Or is something else happening entirely?
That is the question. And that leads us directly into part 2, forced proximity. The retreat begins, and the logistics of awkwardness are immediately dialed up to 11.
Mike, the Flybutter CEO, warns everyone, fake it till you make it. The studio is on the brink of bankruptcy. If this collaboration fails, they are out on the street.
We can't overstate that pressure. It's not just, oh, the retreat will be awkward. It's, if I don't make this work with the guy who hates me, I can't pay my rent. That adds a layer of desperation to every single interaction.
And because the universe has a sense of humor, or perhaps cruelty, there is a parking shortage. So Viola is forced to ride in a car with Jesse, Otto, and Ashley from Nephilim.
This car ride is pivotal. It's a closed environment. Viola is stuck in the back seat. She can't escape. And she is forced to observe Jesse outside of her villain narrative. She's expecting him to be a monster, or at least to ignore everyone. Instead, what does she see?
She sees him being normal, even kind. She overhears him comforting Ashley about her dog surgery. He's asking questions. He's gentle. He's reassuring. He's joking with Otto.
It creates a crack in her perception, a data anomaly. She realizes, oh, he has a personality, he's capable of warmth, he just doesn't show it to me.
Which almost hurts more, doesn't it? To know he's nice to everyone else.
Oh, absolutely.
Confirms the he specifically hates me theory. But my favorite part of the car ride is the excruciating conversation she has to sit through. Jesse and Ashley start nerding out about triathlons.
The Zone 2 training conversation, oh my God.
Yes. Okay, for the non-athletes, can you explain what Zone 2 is and why talking about it is essentially a sedative?
So Zone 2 training is this very specific type of endurance training where you keep your heart rate at a strictly low level, usually 60 to 70% of your max.
So not even working hard.
It's not sprinting, it's plodding. It requires immense patience and discipline. You have to monitor your watch constantly. It's all about lactate thresholds and mitochondrial efficiency.
It is the most boring, nerdy, data-driven fitness talk imaginable.
It is dry as dust, and they talk about energy gels, which flavor has the best carb-to-sugar ratio. Viola is just dying in the backseat. But this detail is brilliant because it tells us so much about Jesse.
What does it tell us, besides the fact that he's a fitness nut?
It tells us he is disciplined. He is obsessive. He likes systems. He likes control. He's not just a jock. He's a fitness nerd. It grounds him. He isn't just a brooding romance hero. He's a guy who obsesses over his heart rate monitor. It makes him real.
And it makes Viola's suffering hilarious. She's stuck listening to this for hours. But eventually they arrive at the lodge. It's luxurious, beautiful, but it's a trap. And we have the classic room assignment trope.
You cannot have a romance novel without a room assignment mix-up. It's a rule.
Of course not.
Yeah.
So Viola is in room 4. Her work bestie, Ethan, tries to switch rooms because he's secretly dating Shannon, the character artist, and wants to be near her. He's trying to manipulate the spreadsheet.
But the swap gets botched. The chaotic nature of the group takes over, and Viola ends up, guess where?
Right next door to Jesse, of course. The walls are thin. The balconies connect.
The universe is relentless, and there's this key interaction in the hallway when they are unpacking. Viola, trying to be the bigger person, trying to save the company, attempts to smooth things over. She says something like, I don't snore and I have noise-canceling headphones.
She is basically promising not to exist. She's saying, I will be invisible so I don't offend you with my presence.
And Jesse's response is, I'll try to keep out of your way.
See, to Viola that sounds like, I want to avoid you because you repulse me. It sounds like he's dreading seeing her.
Exactly. She interprets it through the filter of her insecurity. But let's play devil's advocate. If you look at the text objectively, I'll try to keep out of your way, could also mean, I know I make you uncomfortable, so I will give you space.
It's ambiguous. It could be consideration, I won't bother you. But because she thinks he hates her, she takes it as a slight. It just reinforces everything she already believes.
She assumes malice where there might be respect. But that assumption gets tested in part 3. Sabotage and leadership. Because things go from awkward to actively hostile within the team.
This is where the plot thickens. We leave the romance for a second and get into the corporate espionage vibes. Viola's wandering around the lodge, maybe getting a snack, and she overhears a conversation between Nephilim employees, John and Ashley.
John. We need to talk about John. He represents the toxic side of the industry. He's arrogant. He's dismissive of Flybutter's girly narrative focus. He basically proposes a sabotage plan.
He says, look, we don't need to try. Starplay is going to pick Nephilim anyway, because we have the combat experience. Limerence 3 needs combat. Violet is good at roleplay, but she has no combat skills. Jesse can do both. So let's just wait it out, let Flybutter fail, and take the contract.
It's a cynical Machiavellian take. It's also incredibly risky. If Starplay sees them failing, they might just fire everyone. But John is betting on Nephilim's superiority.
And Viola hears this. She is furious. And naturally, she assumes Jesse is in on it. Why wouldn't she? He's their leader. Nephilim is his studio. She assumes this is a top-down directive.
She feels betrayed. Even though she expects the worst from him, she finds him in the library. And this confrontation is the first time the gloves really come off.
The scene is electric. She accuses him of banking on Starplay picking Nephilim. She demands to know why he treats her like a poisonous mushroom. She throws that metaphor right in his face.
And then she does something bold. He tries to walk away, probably to de-escalate, or maybe he's just confused, and she grabs his wrist to stop him.
Let's slow down on this moment. The physical contact. Up until now, they've barely touched.
The text describes Jesse having a visceral physical reaction. It's not disgust, it's intensity. He freezes, his muscles lock up. He looks at her hand on his arm like it's burning him.
And Viola takes that freeze as revulsion. She thinks, oh God, he hates that I touched him.
But if we look at the cues, the heavy breathing, the intensity of the stare, it reads more like someone who is overwhelmed. He denies disliking her verbally, but his body language is screaming, "Warning! System overload!" So he pulls away abruptly.
Which confirms Viola's rejection theory. But then the next morning at breakfast, we see the real Jesse Andrews. We see the leader.
This is a great scene. The entire group is eating awkwardly, I assume. Jesse stands up, and he addresses everyone, both studios.
He goes full boss mode.
All right.
He doesn't call out John specifically by name, but he looks right at him. He completely shuts down the sabotage idea.
He says, "This is not an us or them situation. It's an us and them, or we both lose." He explains the reality. Nephilim cannot write the story. Flybutter cannot build the combat engine. They are symbiotic.
And then he drops the hammer. He says, I want to work on this game. And if I catch any of you standing in my way, I will deal with it swiftly.
That line, "I want to work on this game," is significant. It aligns his motivation with Viola's. Up until now, she thought he was indifferent or hostile to the project. Now she knows. He cares. He cares about the work.
And Viola, recognizing this, stands up. She backs him. She tells her team, we're doing this. She presents a united front.
It's the shift from enemies to allies. And frankly, it's competent. There is something undeniably attractive about watching someone do their job well, especially when that job is wrangling a toxic team.
Competence porn. It's a real thing. Seeing him command the room changes her view of him. He's not just the guy who ignored her, he's a leader who protects the project.
And that leads us directly into part 4, creative alignment. Because now that they are professionally aligned, we start to see the intellectual bond. And this is really the heart of the romance for me. It's not just he's hot, it's he gets it.
And it all revolves around the source material, the Limerence saga. We have to talk about this book series because it's not just a plot device, it's a character in itself.
It is. Viola has a deep personal connection to it. She used to read it with her dad, who has passed away. It represents her childhood, her love of fantasy, her bond with her father. It's sacred ground for her.
And she assumes Jesse's just a combat guy, a shoot-'em-up designer who doesn't care about the story. She thinks he just skims the dialogue to get to the fighting.
That's her prejudice against his genre, but then she finds his copy of the book in the library.
And it's not a pristine, unread copy. It's tattered, it's dog-eared, it's annotated. There are notes in the margins.
That is the universal sign of a true book lover. You don't destroy a book like that unless you love it, unless you have carried it around in your bag for years.
It challenges her entire worldview. She realizes he's engaged with the text. He's thought about it. And this culminates in the design meeting with Otto and Mike.
This meeting is crucial. It's the first time they are really working together on the creative vision. The suits, Mike and Otto, want to simplify the game. They suggest cutting a playable character.
They want to cut either the male lead or the female lead and just have one. They say, it's too expensive to animate both. It's too much branching dialogue. Let's just streamline it.
From a business perspective, sure, save money. But from a narrative perspective, it destroys the core of the story. The story is about the duality of these two characters.
And simultaneously, in unison, without looking at each other, Viola and Jesse say no.
The Jinx moment, it's perfect.
It's perfect synchronization.
Yeah.
They don't just say no, they launch into a defense of the story. They bond over the deeper meaning of the book, and they discuss the definition of limerence.
This is a key concept. We dropped the word earlier, but we need to define it. Limerence isn't just love. It was a term coined by psychologist Dorothy Tennov in the 70s. It refers to an involuntary state of mind which results from a romantic attraction to another person combined with an overwhelming, obsessive need to have one's feelings reciprocated.
Obsessive. Involuntary. That sounds intense.
It is. It's different from healthy love. It involves intrusive thoughts, fear of rejection, and often a lot of pain. It's wanting without having.
And in the context of the book, The Limerence Saga,
Yeah.
the characters are reincarnated lovers cursed to die if they remember their love. So they are constantly in this state of limerence, drawn to each other, but unable to fully be together without tragedy.
And Jesse explains the theme during the meeting. He says, it's an ode to the enduring power of love, to wanting, even without having. He argues that the longing is the point.
And let's be real, he is clearly not just talking about the book. The subtext here is screaming. He is looking right at Viola when he says this.
He is telling her his philosophy. He's saying, I have wanted you for 6 years. I haven't had you. But that wanting still has value. It's still powerful.
It's a moment of vulnerability masked as literary analysis, which is the most nerdy, sexy thing possible. He's telling her that loving someone from afar, even if it's unrequited, is beautiful in its own tragic way.
It shifts the ground beneath them. Viola realizes they share a brain. They share a soul connection to this story. He's not the enemy. He's the only other person who understands why this game matters.
It is deeply romantic, and it builds this incredible tension. You can only hold that kind of tension for so long. The intellectual connection, the physical attraction, before it snaps, especially when you add alcohol.
Which brings us to part 5, debugging the past. Because the truth has to come out eventually.
Enter the Red Dead Redemption 2 drinking game.
Oh boy, this is good.
For those who haven't played Red Dead 2, it is a masterpiece, but it is also a very long, very deliberate cowboy simulator. And the main character, Arthur Morgan, has a specific way of talking.
He says son a lot, or boy to his horse.
So Ashley, Otto, and Jesse are playing this game where they drink every time a character says son or something similar, which happens constantly.
It's a recipe for disaster. And Viola walks in and finds them absolutely wasted. Jesse is practically comatose on the couch.
Viola, being the responsible one, and the one who cares, helps a mostly asleep Jesse to his room. She's dragging this tall, muscular man down the hallway.
And in this moment of lowered inhibition, when the executive function of his brain is offline, the filter drops.
He touches her face. He looks at her with these drunk, honest eyes and says, "You are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen."
And he admits he hasn't stopped thinking about her since they met. Since the beginning, he says.
This creates a crisis for Viola, because the next morning she wakes up and thinks, was that real? Or was that just the tequila talking? Does he mean it? Or was he confusing me with someone else?
She needs data verification. She needs a second source. And she gets it from an unlikely place. Ethan, her work bestie.
Ethan looks terrified. He tells Viola that Jesse cornered him earlier that morning.
Because remember, everyone thinks Ethan and Viola are dating. It's a fake rumor, but Jesse believes it.
Jesse, hungover and grumpy, threatened Ethan. He basically said, if you hurt her, you're dead. If you cheat on her, I will end you.
That is not the behavior of a man who hates you. That is not the behavior of a professional rival. That is the behavior of a man who is jealous, protective, and deeply invested in your well-being.
It's the final clue Viola needs to realize. Her villain narrative is completely wrong. The data doesn't fit the model anymore. The whole thing crashes.
So she confronts the glitch. This leads to the scene on the porch. It's snowing. It's freezing cold. They're having a snowball fight, which is playful, childish fun, but then it gets serious.
Jesse warms her hands. He takes her freezing hands in his, which is a swoon-worthy move in itself. And they finally talk about the past. They debug the code of their relationship.
They go back to the source of the error, the interview, 6 years ago.
Viola says, "You followed me out to pity me."
And Jesse reveals the truth. I didn't follow you to pity you. I followed you to ask you out.
Wait, pause. He asked her out.
He did. He said, hey, would you want to get coffee sometime?
So why didn't she hear it? How do you miss that?
Because she was in a rage spiral. She had just been insulted by a sexist boss. She had a migraine. Her blood was boiling. She literally didn't hear the question. She just launched into her rant about how much she hates the industry and the men in it.
And Jesse interpreted that rant as a rejection.
Think about it from his perspective. He asks a girl out. She responds by screaming about how awful men in gaming are. He thinks she is saying, I hate men, and I specifically want you to leave me alone.
So he backed off.
He backed off out of respect. He thought she made her feelings clear. She wants distance.
And the mistletoe incident.
He explains that too. He says, I refused to kiss you, not because you're gross, but because I knew I couldn't stop at a polite peck on the cheek.
He knew he wanted it too much.
He thought she would feel cornered. He thought she disliked him. So if he kissed her and he put all his 6 years of pent-up passion into it, she would be disgusted. She would feel assaulted. So he protected her and himself by shutting it down.
So I don't want anything to do with her. Wasn't an attack. It was a defensive wall.
It was him saying, I need to stay away from her because I am too obsessed with her and she hates me.
My God. The tragedy of errors here.
Yeah.
He asks her out. She doesn't hear it. She rants. He thinks it's rejection. He pulls away to respect her. She thinks he's cold. They both walk away with completely different understandings of reality.
And it lasted 6 years. That is the power of a communication breakdown. They were living in parallel universes.
It completely changes everything. The coldness wasn't malice. It was self-preservation. He was trying to respect the boundary he thought she had set.
It's a perfect example of how two people can look at the same data set and draw completely opposite conclusions.
So now that the code is debugged, now that the glitch is fixed, the system can finally run properly. We move to part 6. Resolution, or, as I like to call it, from cold shoulder to hot tub.
The setting is classic. The hot tub at the lodge. It's night. There's steam. Viola joins Mike, Otto, and Jesse.
And there's this great moment of intellectual compatibility again. They start arguing about the video game Fallout 76.
Now, for context, Fallout 76 at launch was controversial.
That is a polite way to put it. It was a disaster. It was an online world with no human NPCs, non-player characters. It felt empty.
And Otto, playing the contrarian, defends it. He says, it's environmental storytelling. It's bold.
Yeah.
And Jesse and Viola team up to destroy him.
They agree perfectly on why it's bad. They argue that a game without human connection, without narrative soul, is empty. It shows they value the same things in design. Narrative, consequence, polish. They are a united team against bad game design.
It's a small detail, but it shows they share a brain. And then the plot clears the room. Mike and Otto leave, presumably to finally go hook up, leaving Viola and Jesse alone in the steam.
And the physical escalation happens. Viola slips, literally slips on the wet tile, and lands in Jesse's lap.
A classic maneuver. But instead of pulling away like he did in the library, he holds her. The reaction is immediate. There is no denying the chemistry now.
Viola basically says, I don't mind if you like me. She gives him the green light. She says, you don't have to stay away.
And Jesse admits, I doubt I'll ever stop, which is just a great line.
But the real resolution isn't in the hot tub. It's in the bedroom conversation afterward. Viola goes to his room at 3 a.m. She uses a flimsy excuse, returning his gloves, but she's there to confess.
She tells him she's had a crush on him for years. She lays it all out. She says, I want this. And here is where Jesse does something that makes him a top-tier romantic hero. He refuses casual sex.
This is fascinating. You'd expect after 6 years of pining for him to jump at the chance, rip the clothes off, let's go. But he sets a boundary.
He explains that for him, it's not just a hookup. He says, it's gonna stick.
It's gonna stick. I love that phrasing. What does he mean by that?
Yeah. He knows himself. He has been obsessed with her in a state of limerence for years. If they sleep together, he is going to be all in. He will want marriage, kids, the whole thing. And since they have to work together on this high-stakes project, he needs to be careful. He doesn't want to crash and burn.
It speaks to a kind of demisexuality, or at least deep emotional intentionality. He values her too much to risk a messy fling. He wants the real thing or nothing.
It shows the depth of his feelings. He's looking at the long game. It's incredibly respectful of her and of himself.
So Viola proposes a compromise. She says, okay, no sex, but let's just hang out. Let's explore this. Let's make out and see if there is something to be had.
Something to be had. It's a tentative, hopeful beginning. It's debugging the relationship in real time.
And the result is this incredibly intimate scene where they just spend hours making out on his bed, fully clothed.
Which is often more intimate than sex. It's about the connection. It's about being close, the anticipation.
And he tells her, I used to dream of you doing this. It is intense praise and intimacy. It validates that his hate was actually longing all along.
It validates the title, Two Can Play. They are finally playing the same game with the same rules. They are finally on the same server.
So let's wrap this deep dive up. We've gone from nincompoops and sabotage to hot tubs and confessions. What are we taking away from Viola and Jesse's snowy saga?
I think the biggest takeaway is the danger of assumptions. We construct narratives in our heads. He hates me, she rejected me, and we live in those narratives as if they are facts. We build our whole reality around them, but often they are just missed lines of code.
Right. If Jesse had just repeated his question about coffee 6 years ago, or if Viola had asked, wait, why did you say I don't think so? At the party, they could have saved years of heartache.
Communication is the ultimate debugging tool,
Mm.
but I also think there's a takeaway about shared passion. What ultimately brought them together wasn't just physical attraction, it was their shared love for the Limerence saga. It was their intellectual bond. That was the real foundation.
That brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. How many glitches in your own relationships with coworkers, friends, or partners are just questions you never asked? Are you living in a reality based on a misunderstanding from 6 years ago?
And is there something purely romantic about limerence, the wanting without having? Or is that just a safety mechanism we use to avoid the risk of the real thing? Because Jesse and Viola show us that eventually you have to stop wanting and start having, even if it's scary.
Sometimes the real thing is worth the risk of crashing the system. I love that. Clear up your misunderstandings, people. Don't let a glitch turn into a 6-year feud. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.